The body cam footage we're about to show you is confronting, shocking, and particularly for the officers who lived through it, downright frightening. It also happens to be the culmination of a crime spree so strange that even those whose lives were destroyed by these events still can't make sense of it. Police officers from the Sandy Springs Police Department had just been dispatched to a home on Cameron Ridge Drive in Fulton County, Georgia, after residents reported an intruder. As it happened, local officers were already in the neighborhood processing a home invasion nearby. When they arrived at the residence, they were informed by the homeowners that the suspect was still on the premises and had just gone upstairs.
Hey, sir, did you call?
Yes, sir.
Hey, so is there someone actively in your house right now?
Yes.
Where's he at? Hey, puppy. You know this guy?
No, not at all.
Okay.
He's going upstairs.
I told him not to go upstairs and he just went upstairs.
Okay. Has he got any weapons or anything like
I
that?
can't tell. He's
Okay.
Hey, it's the police department. Come on down. What's your name? Hello? Your house is next door. It's not this one. It is. It's next door, man. This is the residence of... What's that?
This would not be considered illegal trespassing, would it?
No, man. Not if you come out right now and talk to us.
That's what I'm afraid of, is that it would be twisted.
No, we're not going to twist anything like that, you know?
Next door, you said?
Yeah. Yeah, come down right now and we'll go next door with you. You're in the wrong house. You scared this this poor old lady out here. She was sleeping.
I suppose we could take it next door, could we?
Yes, of course. Come on.
Are you afraid to come up?
No, I just am down here waiting for you. That's it. You've been downstairs before, right? Are you ready to come downstairs?
For 5 long minutes, officers negotiated with the intruder, who remained eerily out of sight on the upper floor. And then this happened.
Are these the only steps up? Yes. Hey, come on down, man. Come on down. Go!
The man you have just seen violently and without provocation attack a police officer is 22-year-old Matthew Scott Lanz, the same perpetrator, it would turn out, who had broken into a home down the street. Unbeknownst to officers, Lanz had pulled out a hunting knife as he descended the stairs and then used it to viciously stab the nearest officer. By the time officers had successfully detained him, tasering, pepper spraying, and finally shooting him, Lanz had inflicted 6 near-fatal wounds to the officer's neck and back. Thankfully, the officer made a recovery, although you can see from this footage that he was lucky to escape with his life. One of the wounds barely missed his brainstem at the base of his skull. Another stab wound was within millimeters of his carotid artery. Lanz, meanwhile, was taken to a nearby hospital where he, too, made a full recovery. But exactly who is Matthew Scott Lanz, other than being someone clearly deranged and homicidal? It's fair to say that, had police officers known more about the man they were dealing with that day, they would have taken a distinctly less diplomatic approach to his detainment. Welcome to Fear Files, where we discuss and dissect the most mysterious, terrifying, and mind-bending cases from all over the world. Before we start, we would like to send our thoughts and prayers to the loved ones of all those who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. 2 days before Matthew Lanz stabbed a police officer almost to death, tragedy had been unfolding at a house on Verbena Drive in the city of Acworth in nearby Cobb County. This helicopter footage shows the red brick house on Verbena Drive where the slain bodies of an innocent couple were found. You'll also notice several police officers in the garden of a large weatherboard house that lies right behind the Verbena Drive dwelling. That property is the residence of Teresa and Scott Lanz and their 4 children, one of whom happened to be Matthew Lanz. But this is an unusually complex one. Let's rewind. In the summer of 2019, Philip Brent and Eliza Wells, both age 23, had just moved into their new home on Verbena Drive, Acworth. Acworth, as you can see from the images, is an affluent neighborhood of green lawns and sprawling, wide-spaced houses. Located in Cobb County, Georgia, Acworth lies along the shores of 2 lakes on the Etowah River and the foothills of the North Georgia mountains. It felt like the perfect place for newly engaged Philip and Eliza to start building their lives. But as we know, there's no such thing as perfect. Because just several months after moving into their new home, Philip and Eliza began receiving disturbing, hand-delivered letters in their mailbox. Someone was taking explicit pornographic images, folding them into pieces of computer paper, and then scrawling them with messages written with a Sharpie marker. The messages made no sense, and at first the couple dismissed them as mean-spirited pranks by local kids. The letters, however, kept coming. On one occasion, the pornographic image featured a woman wearing a tiara. Accompanying it was a plastic toy tiara. The couple found the combination particularly disturbing. They didn't know it then, but this was just the start of a bizarre campaign that would eventually turn their new home into a tragic and gruesome crime scene. Unable to trace the letters, police recommended the couple install home surveillance cameras. In mid-2020, Philip woke to find a juice bottle with a cigarette in it resting against his garage door. Scrolling back through his security footage, he found footage of a man walking up their drive late that evening and depositing the bottle at the garage door. Philip recognized him immediately. It was Austin Lanz, the 27-year-old man who lived on the property behind theirs. They'd never been formally introduced to him and never had spoken a word to him, but they'd often seen him sitting on his porch smoking when they passed by the large white house on Delphinium Boulevard where he lived with his parents and several siblings. Austin's father was a successful construction executive, and Austin worked at his dad's company. He'd once aspired to be a Marine. In 2012, he had enlisted in the Marine Corps, but had been ousted less than a month later for, according to his family, high blood pressure. The couple weren't surprised to discover that their tormentor was Austin. "We had already suspected it was him," Philip said. "We had to drive by his house often. Every time we passed by, he was outside smoking a cigarette or would just be standing there, and he would give us the creepiest, unsettling looks and wave at us." Austin was issued a warning by police. His parents requested to speak to Philip and Eliza. With police officers present, the couple approached the home on Delphinium Boulevard, where Teresa and Scott Lanz were already waiting outside. They apologized for their son's behavior and said that it had disturbed them deeply. They promised to get him therapy. It was then Austin's turn to apologize. Austin was sitting slumped in a nearby chair. Police officers asked Austin why he was doing these things when he'd never even met the couple. To that, Austin replied chillingly, "Well, I can see Eliza through the bathroom window." Their bathroom in their house, Eliza realized, was visible from the Lanz home. Austin had been watching her, and now he wanted her to know. Needless to say, the blinds on that side of the house were never opened again. But that wasn't the most unnerving part. It was clear from the conversation that Philip and Eliza weren't dealing with your average neighborly vendetta over a boundary line or anything that might be resolved in a rational way. Austin was a man whose grip on reality seemed to be loose, to say the least, and for some reason they'd somehow become the central focus of his bizarre and unsettling behavior. The couple applied for a restraining order from the Cobb County Magistrate Court, but were told there wasn't sufficient reason to warrant one. By October 2020, Eliza had moved out of the house. The couple had gone their separate ways, most likely for reasons more fundamental than the strain of having a stalker next door, but still, no doubt, that hadn't helped. Meanwhile, the pornographic images and other strange items continued to show up at the house. Around midnight on April 18th, Philip awoke to an alert from his alarm company. someone was in his house. Pulling up his surveillance video feed on his phone, Philip saw that Austin was at his front door, taping a large cardboard sign across it. It bore the cryptic message, "I'm done wondering for real. What is the point of that?" This time, officers issued Lanz with a trespass warning. But by now, Philip was so unnerved he packed a bag and began sleeping at his sister's house. This, as it would turn out, would be a life-saving move. On April 24th, around 4 a.m., Philip awoke again to an alert. This time, what he saw when he dialed up the video from his home surveillance feed chilled him to the bone. Wearing a mask, Austin had smashed through his back door with a sledgehammer. Armed with a crowbar and a gun, Austin roamed through the house for 13 minutes, switching on lights in every room. In Philip's bedroom, he threw off the bed sheets. Police later said it was clear that he was looking for something specific, or, more likely, someone. Police arrested Austin that night on burglary and trespassing charges. At the Cobb County Jail, he argued that he hadn't taken anything. Police now got their first proper glimpse of the madness that was in the mind of Austin Lanz. Planes were constantly flying over his neighborhood, he said, and his phone was being tracked. Then, without warning, he attacked 2 Cobb County Sheriff's deputies, seriously injuring both. Several other deputies fought to restrain him. He accused them of being cowards and challenged them to uncuff him so he could fight them one-on-one. Needless to say, this was a man suffering more than a few psychological issues. Nevertheless, on July 18, 2021, Austin was released from jail on a $30,000 bail. He was ordered to take a mental health and substance abuse evaluation within 30 days of his release, but Austin would be dead long before that. On August 3, 2021, Austin arrived in the D.C. area and caught a bus to the Pentagon. At the time, journalist David Satter was working in a nearby federal building when he heard gunshots from over near the Metro bus stop. He began filming. There appeared to be a body on the ground surrounded by several police officers at the Pentagon Transit Center. The body is that of senior Pentagon police officer George Gonzalez, a decorated war veteran. Austin Lanz had exited the bus, approached Gonzalez at random, and stabbed him in the neck before pulling the man's gun off of him and shooting him dead. He then fatally shot himself. The Pentagon was put on lockdown for nearly 2 hours. They later issued a report on the attack, ascribing Austin's motive as likely stemming from mental health challenges and a desire to reap revenge on the U.S. military who had foiled his aspirations to become a Marine. He also likely fostered hostilities towards the U.S. authorities as a whole, the report said.
A man accused of attacking 2 Cobb County deputies earlier this year and then just yesterday fatally stabbing a Pentagon officer. Joe Hankey spent the day digging through warrants to help us understand more about Austin Lanz's past and the moments leading up to the attack at the Pentagon Transit Center. And Joe, you also spoke to one of his neighbors, right?
Well, that's right, Sheba. One of his next door neighbors says his family has lived in the same home in Acworth for nearly 3 decades. It's where 27-year-old Austin Lanz grew up and continued to live with his parents, according to this neighbor. She said she knew about the attack at the Pentagon officer yesterday, but she didn't know Lanz was the suspect until we talked. Information released this afternoon by the FBI in Washington details Austin Lanz stepping off a bus at the Pentagon Tuesday, and then without being provoked, he immediately attacked Pentagon police officer George Gonzalez with a knife. According to the FBI, after killing Gonzalez, Lanz took the officer's gun, shot himself, and then died when other officers, quote, engaged him. Gonzalez is described as a Brooklyn, New York native, a diehard Yankees fan, and an Army vet who served in Iraq.
I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. I've been in this neighborhood for 32 years.
Valerie Simpson says the Lanz family moved into her Acworth neighborhood shortly after her and raised their family, including Austin Lanz, who had an extremely short military career when he was a teen. In a statement, a Marine Corps major tells 11 Alive, "We can confirm Austin W. Lanz enlisted in the Marine Corps on October 9th, 2012, but was administratively separated on November 2nd, 2012, and never earned the title Marine." Simpson says earlier this year, Cobb County Police came to the Lanz house.
I did see the cop car. cars out here, and they were talking to the family.
That was April 24th, with police in an arrest warrant accusing Lanz of breaking into another neighbor's home and leaving, quote, inappropriate pictures and messages in the mailbox. When he was arrested for criminal trespassing and burglary, Lanz claimed police had been flying planes over the neighborhood and tracking his phone. Later that day, after he was booked into the Cobb County Jail, Lanz is accused in a second warrant of attacking two deputies, dislocating one's thumb and leaving the other with a torn ACL and chipped knee bone, while destroying one of their tasers and making verbal threats against deputies. 2 days later, a judge granted Lanz a $45,000 bond. In May, a judge reduced his bond to $30,000 and ordered Lanz to have a drug, alcohol, and mental health evaluation completed within 30 days of leaving jail. Lanz was released from jail on July 18th, meaning that deadline had not yet passed. The Lanz family was not home today when we knocked on their door, but an attorney for the family says they may soon release a statement. The motive for the attack outside the Pentagon, still unknown, and the FBI is still investigating. Flags outside the Pentagon are being flown at half-staff in honor of Officer George Gonzalez.
It would seem like any desire for revenge on the military had long since segued into the territory of psychosis, with all the feelings of persecution that it entails. Lanz's family issued a statement offering heartfelt condolences to the family of George Gonzalez, saying that they were sorry and heartbroken. His family said Austin had been overcome by mental health challenges in the recent months and had had several hospital stays and numerous professional mental health evaluations, yet had been unable to get the help he so desperately needed. It appeared to be the tragic end to a tragic chapter, only it wasn't over yet. On the morning of November 18, 2021, police were sent to conduct a welfare check on the residents of a red brick house on Verbena Drive, Acworth. They were met with a grisly scene. The body of a young woman was found sitting on the couch. She had gunshot wounds to her leg, wrists, and face. The body of a man was lying on the floor next to her. He had been shot in the head, shoulder, and torso. It was the same house that, just several months earlier, had been the target of so many disturbing letters, including a home invasion by a man wielding a crowbar. Only that man was now dead, and this was not the couple who'd been harassed for so many long months. As it turned out, earlier that year, the house on Verbena Drive had been put up for sale. Perhaps the whole stalking experience had taken the shine off the Acworth neighborhood for Philip Brent. Whatever the reason, the house was purchased on August the 31st, 2021, by Justin Thomas Hicks and his wife Amber Hicks, both 31. The couple had soon moved in, along with their 2-year-old son, Jacob. The Hicks were childhood sweethearts who grew up down the street from each other. Tim was a 6-year veteran firefighter in the Cherokee County Fire and Emergency Services and had recently completed his paramedic training. Amber had studied sports medicine and was an audiology assistant at an audiology and hearing aid center. This was their first home. On her Facebook page, Amber posted pictures of the couple with their son outside the house and thanked their real estate agent for finding them their dream home. September 17, 2021. Kristen Harden is very dedicated to her job. She was the whole reason we got our dream home. She is a very sweet and professional individual. I highly recommend her and her team. On November 7, 2021, Amber made her last ever post. Love this picture from our honeymoon and my hubby, Justin Hicks. At 8 p.m. on November 17th, 22-year-old Matthew Lanz left his apartment in Athens, where he was a student at the University of Georgia, and began the drive to Acworth. With him, he had a tactical backpack, a gun, a knife, ammunition, and a flashlight designed to break glass. By 9 p.m., he was at the red brick house that backed onto his parents' house in Acworth. With 2-year-old Jacob asleep in his crib, he entered the home, shot and killed Justin and Amber, and then drove back to his apartment in Athens. When Jacob failed to turn up at preschool the next day, Amber's mother requested a welfare check. Police found the bodies of Justin and Amber, with Jacob still in his cot unharmed. He had been hours without food or water, and no one to hear his cries. None of it made sense, not to the police, not to neighbors. The man who'd terrorized the former residents was dead. could this be merely a chilling coincidence? While homicide detectives launched their investigation into the double homicide in Acworth, officers at the Sandy Springs Police Department were dealing with the stabbing assault of a police officer by Matthew Lanz. He was, they soon realized, the brother of killer Austin Lanz and a neighbor to the young couple who had just been tragically slain in their own home. Once again, the trail seemed to be leading detectives back to the Lanz family. Could the family have not one, but two murderous sons? It hardly seemed possible. Police examined the surveillance footage from the Hicks home. In it, Matthew Lanz could be seen crossing the backyard on the night of the murders wearing a gray hoodie. During a search of his apartment, police found the gray hoodie was still in his washing machine. They also found ammunition and shell casings. The gun with which he had committed the murders was later found at his parents' home. In February of 2022, a Cobb County grand jury indicted Matthew Scott Lanz in the murder of Justin and Amber Hicks, along with a laundry list of other charges, including one count of second-degree cruelty to children. The cruelty to children charge stemmed from Lanz leaving 2-year-old Jacob Hicks alone with his murdered parents. He is currently being kept without bail in the Fulton County Jail. And this, we're afraid, is where the facts of this story come to an end for now.
Cobb County Bureau Chief Chris Jose is live in Marietta with new developments you will only see here on Channel 2. Chris.
And Linda, we saw the lead investigator right here at the Cobb County Courthouse today. Late this afternoon, he revealed new information we have not heard before, including that brand new evidence you just mentioned. Inside the courtroom, he was surrounded by a half-dozen deputies for the entire hearing.
Tactical backpack, binoculars.
Those are some of the items Cobb police say they found in a car driven by Matthew Lanz.
And we also found a large metal flashlight that had a pointed end cap on the end, which is designed to break glass.
We got our first look at Lanz on Wednesday. He's the man accused of shooting and killing Justin and Amber Hicks.
Amber was found still sitting on the couch. Timothy Justin Hicks was found on the floor right next to the couch.
Detective Zachary Stannard testified that cell phone data shows Lanz leaving his apartment in Athens, where he was a student at UGA, at 8 p.m. on November 17th. That same data shows Lanz at the scene of the crime in Acworth around 9 p.m. Lanz's parents and the Hicks were neighbors and shared a backyard fence. The detective said Lanz drove back to his Athens apartment after the murder.
He found a gray North Face hoodie in the washing machine, and we also discovered ammunition.
Hours prior to the search of Lanz's apartment, police say his parents drove to Athens and asked him if he killed Justin and Amber Hicks. He denied it, but his parents saw the gun allegedly used in the murder.
They confirmed that they took a pistol from his house, but left the magazines and ammunition at his apartment.
And police say surveillance video from a neighbor's camera shows Lanz in the Hicks family backyard. In that video, you see a man wearing a gray hoodie. Investigators believe it's the same gray hoodie they found inside the washing machine at that Athens apartment. Police say they found the gun at his parents' home.
Just like the rest of the Acworth community, we're left with burning questions to which there aren't any concrete answers. Like others in the true crime community, we can only speculate wildly as to what could have possibly led two brothers to commit such heinous crimes. So on that note, let's speculate. On the question of why the original homeowners were targeted by Austin Lanz, the consensus seems to be that mental illness was the driving factor of his bizarre harassment campaign. It seems likely that a kind of paranoid ideation had taken a hold of Lanz, including the notion that the couple were somehow conspiring against him. Perhaps Austin's delusions were even far-reaching, that the couple had been installed in the house to watch him as part of some government-led conspiracy, hence his talk of phone tracking and his violent attacks on police. But what of Matthew? Amber's cousin speculated that it could have been a case of mistaken identity and retribution for his older brother's death. According to this theory, a violent and homicidal, but not delusional, Matthew had stepped up to finish off what Austin had not managed to do and had mistaken Amber and Justin for Eliza and Philip. But mental illness, we know, has a strong hereditary component. If Austin was schizophrenic or suffering from some form of psychosis, it's possible that Matthew may have developed a similar illness. Living in the same house, they may even have developed shared delusions. Perhaps Matthew had bought into his older brother's beliefs about the couple next door. Perhaps he had come to think of the house itself as part of some covert government operation. After Philip and Eliza had left, a new couple had been installed in their place. Shared delusions are a rare phenomenon, but there have been many examples over the years. Swedish twins Ursula and Sabina Eriksson came to national attention in 2008 when footage showed them running into oncoming traffic on a busy highway in England. Both sisters were hit by cars, leaving one sister unconscious for several minutes. They resisted help from paramedics and officers, with Sabina shouting, "They're going to steal your organs." But all of this is speculation, of course. Weigh in with your own thoughts in the comments section below. Brent and his former fiancée, Eliza, later said they were frustrated with the criminal justice system and felt that it had let them down. Eliza said, "It just causes me to wonder what could have been done differently to help Austin mentally and give him the tools and resources he needed instead of just letting him out on bail." Sadly, that failure of the system cost George Gonzalez his life. It may well have also paved the way for the tragic loss of Amber and Justin Hicks. Our Amber and Justin have been taken from us in such a senseless act, a GoFundMe for the family said in the weeks following the murder. 2 literal angels on earth have been taken too soon. They had their whole life ahead of them, and they leave behind a precious little boy. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.